Beneath a velvet night sky, where stars shimmered like tiny lanterns, a quiet kingdom lay tucked between rolling hills and whispering forests. In the tallest tower of the castle, a young princess named Elara leaned on her windowsill, gazing out at the glowing horizon. Her golden hair spilled over her shoulders like sunlight, though her eyes looked tired. Every night she heard the same sound, low, slow, and rumbling, carrying across the valley. It was not thunder, not the river, not even the wind. It was the breathing of a giant who had slept in the faraway hills for as long as anyone could remember. His snores rolled across the land like gentle drums, making the earth vibrate just a little beneath the castle walls. The people of the kingdom whispered about him with awe. "He must be the sleepy giant," they said. "So long as he slumbers, the land stays calm, the rivers flow gently, and the nights are safe." But Elara, curious and kind-hearted, wondered what it meant for him to dream so deeply. Did he ever wake? Did he know the stars twinkled above him? Did he know there was a world that loved the sound of his steady breathing? On this night, the princess pulled her soft cloak tighter around her shoulders and whispered into the quiet, "Perhaps I should go to him. Perhaps I should meet the sleepy giant." The moon, round and glowing like a guardian, cast a silver path across the fields, almost as though it agreed. The wind carried a hush of lullabies through the trees, urging her forward. And so, with her slippers soft on the stone floor, Elara left her tower, slipping into the night to begin her journey toward the hills where the giant slept. The night air was cool and gentle as Princess Elara stepped out of the castle gates, her cloak trailing softly behind her. The path before her glowed faintly, lit by the silver moon, and the sound of the giant's distant breathing rumbled like a steady heartbeat through the hills. She felt no fear, only wonder, as though the night itself was guiding her. The meadow at the foot of the castle was alive with tiny sparks. Fireflies floated lazily above the grass, their glow pulsing like little stars that had drifted down to earth. Elara paused, and one firefly landed on her hand, its golden light shining against her skin. "Are you going to the sleepy giant too?" she whispered. The firefly blinked twice as if to answer, then lifted off and joined a dozen others who began to hover in front of her, forming a glowing trail. She followed. The grass brushed against her slippers, and each step seemed to hum with the giant's rhythm, as though the land itself moved in time with his dreams. The crickets softened their chirping to match the sound, filling the air with a lullaby that made the meadow feel even cozier. Soon, Elara came to the edge of a forest. Tall trees stood quietly, their branches swaying as though nodding her inside. She hesitated, then pulled her cloak tighter and stepped onto the mossy floor. The fireflies floated ahead, their warm light bouncing against the bark, showing her the way. A rustle came from above. Elara looked up and saw an owl perched on a branch, its round eyes shining like moons. "Little princess," it hooted gently, "are you walking to the hills?" "Yes," she said, her voice soft so as not to disturb the hush of the night. "I wish to meet the sleepy giant." The owl tilted its head. "Then you must follow the path of starlight. The giant rests where the stars lean closer to the earth. Do not worry, he will not wake. He dreams kindly." Elara bowed her head in thanks, and the owl spread its wings, gliding ahead to light the forest path. The rustling of feathers mingled with the soft glow of the fireflies, and together they led her deeper into the woods. Along the way, she passed a family of rabbits curled in their burrow, their noses twitching even as they slept. A deer lifted its head to watch her, then lowered it again to rest. The whole forest seemed at peace, as though the giant's snores blanketed them in comfort. Elara thought, his dreams must be gentle if they let the world sleep so soundly. At last, the trees parted, and she stepped into another meadow, larger and quieter than the first. Here the grass was taller, swaying like a sea of silver under the moonlight. The fireflies circled her once before drifting away, their task complete. The owl landed on a fence post, hooted one last time, and then took flight back into the forest. Elara stood still, gazing ahead. Far in the distance, the outline of the giant rose from the hills, enormous and still, like a mountain that breathed. His chest lifted slowly, falling again with a rumble that shook the ground just enough to make her feel small, yet safe. The princess placed a hand over her heart. "I am closer now," she whispered. Closer to the sleepy giant. Princess Elara stepped into the wide moonlit field, her slippers brushing against grass that reached almost to her knees. The silver blades swayed in rhythm with the slow, steady rise and fall of the giant's chest in the distance. Each breath he took was like a tide rolling in and out, and the whole field seemed to move with him, as though it had grown to the rhythm of his sleep. She walked slowly, letting her fingertips trail over the tops of the grass. It was softer than silk, each blade glowing faintly as her touch passed. Tiny motes of light drifted into the air, hovering like sparks before floating upward toward the stars. Elara smiled softly. "This land carries his dreams," she thought. "Even the grass remembers them." As she continued, she began to notice other wonders. Small pools of water glistened across the field, still and shining like mirrors. She leaned down over one, and instead of her reflection she saw a swirl of shapes, children tucked safely into beds, cradled in sleep. She gasped gently, her hand hovering over the surface. The pools were dream mirrors, catching fragments of the giant's slumber and showing them to anyone who looked. She touched the water lightly with one fingertip, and ripples spread outward, soft and glowing. The image shifted to show a child smiling in their sleep, hugging a small stuffed toy. Elara's eyes warmed. "His dreams protect theirs," she whispered, her voice no louder than the crickets humming around her ankles. "He keeps the whole kingdom safe." Moving on, she noticed flowers dotting the meadow, blossoms that glowed pale blue and opened only when the giant exhaled. Each time his breath rolled across the land, the petals stretched wide, shimmering with a dust that drifted like snowflakes. She paused to watch one bloom unfurl fully, releasing a faint sigh as though relieved to stretch. When the giant inhaled again, the flower slowly closed, curling into itself until his next breath. The princess bent down and kissed one of the blossoms lightly, whispering, "Thank you for keeping the night beautiful." The flower trembled faintly as if it had heard. Deeper into the meadow, the ground grew softer, cushioned with moss that glowed faintly like embers. It sank gently beneath her feet, rocking her slightly as she stepped. She realized it wasn't ordinary moss but dream moss, shaped by the giant's slumber to comfort anyone who crossed his resting place. She stopped and pressed her hands together. "If I am already so drowsy," she whispered, "how deeply he must—" His great hands lay folded across his chest like mountains stacked together. His hair tumbled across the ground in waves that looked like forests, and his closed eyes stretched long and calm, glowing faintly in the moonlight. He looked not frightening, but gentle, like a guardian carved out of earth and starlight. Elara's heart beat softly, not from fear but from awe. She began walking again, each step slower, quieter, as though she might disturb the very dream that kept the land so calm. The wind curled around her, carrying with it faint sounds, deep hums, like lullabies sung by the giant in his sleep. She paused to listen, and realized it wasn't only a sound. It was a feeling. His dream song wrapped around her shoulders like a cloak, soothing and safe, reminding her of her own childhood nights tucked beneath quilts in the castle. The closer she came, the smaller she felt, yet never unsafe. The giant's presence was not heavy or frightening, it was like being near a mountain that had decided to love and protect everything in its shadow. Princess Elara placed her hand over her heart again and whispered, "I must see him closer still. I must understand the dream that carries us all." And with the moon still guiding her, she stepped into the shadow of the sleepy giant. Princess Elara's breath caught softly as she reached the base of the giant's resting body. His presence filled the land around her, not loud or heavy, but deep and steady, like the gentle heartbeat of the earth itself. His folded hands rose before her like hills of stone softened by moss, and his hair, spread wide upon the ground, looked like a vast forest of dark waves. Even in his slumber, the air carried warmth from him, as though his dreams blanketed the land in safety. She stepped lightly into the shadow cast by his chest, the moss glowing faintly beneath her feet. She looked up, and the rise and fall of his breathing towered over her like the tide of an ocean. Each exhale sent a breeze sweeping through the grass, rustling it in a silver wave, while each inhale pulled the air into a soft hush, as though the whole world paused in respect. Around him, she noticed wonders she had never imagined. Tiny streams of dream dust spilled from the corners of his eyes as he dreamed, drifting down like mist. The particles sparkled as they touched the earth, and wherever they landed, something magical appeared, a cluster of glowing mushrooms, a flower that hummed softly, or a stone that pulsed with light. It was as though his very dreams stitched the land with quiet enchantments. Elara reached down and touched one of the glowing mushrooms. It gave a soft sigh, like a content child drifting deeper into slumber, and then released a puff of dream dust into the air. The dust curled around her fingers before floating upward to vanish into the stars. She smiled gently. Even the smallest part of him dreams kindly. She walked further, stepping carefully around the slope of his arm, which lay stretched beside him like a valley wall. A soft glow caught her attention near the crook of his elbow. As she approached, she saw tiny creatures curled there, dream sprites, no bigger than her thumb, wrapped in wings that glittered like glass. They were sound asleep, resting peacefully within the hollow of the giant's arm, as though his presence was the safest place in the world. One of them stirred, blinking drowsily at her. Its eyes glowed like drops of dew, and its tiny voice whispered, "Do not wake him, princess. His dreams weave the calm that holds us." Elara bowed her head, her golden hair falling like a curtain around her face. "I would never," she whispered back. "I only came to see the one who guards us all." The sprite yawned, curling tighter into its glowing wings, and drifted back into slumber. The others didn't stir, lulled by the giant's steady rhythm. Elara turned her gaze upward again. She could see his closed eyes now, long and calm, fringed with lashes that cast shadows across the hills. She wondered what he dreamed, what pictures filled the mind of one so vast that his size shaped forests and rivers. A sudden hush swept the meadow as he exhaled, and the breeze that followed carried with it faint images, like smoke turned into pictures. Elara gasped softly as she watched them unfurl above her, glowing visions of children sleeping in cottages, of stars twinkling gently, of rivers flowing peacefully through moonlit fields. His dreams were not of himself, but of the world. He dreamed to keep everything else safe. The princess pressed her hand over her heart. "You dream of us," she whispered. "You give us peace every night without asking for anything in return." Her voice quivered with tenderness. "How long have you carried this gift?" As if in answer, the giant shifted faintly, his massive fingers curling a little tighter across his chest. The ground trembled gently, not with threat, but with reassurance, as though he had heard her words even in his slumber and wanted her to know she was right. Elara sat upon the glowing moss at the base of his hand, folding her cloak neatly around her. She looked out over the meadow, now so hushed she could hear her own heartbeat joining the rhythm of his breaths. She felt the pull of his dreams wrapping around her, a soft invitation to close her eyes, to share in the calm he carried. But she stayed awake, her heart full of quiet wonder. She realized then that her journey had not been to wake him, but to understand him. And she had. He was not simply the sleepy giant of the kingdom's stories, he was its guardian of dreams, its keeper of peace. Princess Elara remained seated at the base of the giant's folded hands, her cloak tucked around her, watching his immense chest rise and fall. The quiet of the meadow felt timeless, as though the whole world had stopped to share in his dream. The stars above blinked lazily, and the moon lowered, its silver light spilling like a soft blanket across the giant's face. Elara's heart swelled with gratitude. She thought of her people in the kingdom beyond the hills, children sleeping soundly in their beds, farmers resting after a long day, even the animals curled in their barns. All of them drifted peacefully each night under the rhythm of this gentle being's sleep. He had given them a gift greater than gold or jewels, a calm so steady that it stretched across the land. She pressed her hands together, her golden hair falling around her shoulders like a veil. "I cannot simply come, learn, and leave," she whispered softly. "He gives us peace every night. I must give him something in return." Her gaze wandered across the glowing moss, the dream flowers opening and closing with his breath, the dream sprites nestled in the hollow of his arm. What could a princess give to one so vast, so selfless? She thought of the treasures in her castle, crowns, jewels, silks, but none of those felt right. This guardian of dreams did not need riches. He gave without ever asking. Then, like the soft spark of a firefly, an idea bloomed. She untied the ribbon from her hair, a ribbon the color of dawn, woven with threads of gold and rose. It was small compared to his great hands, but it carried meaning. It was a gift of herself, of her care, her promise, her gratitude. Elara rose and stepped carefully onto the moss, climbing onto the edge of his massive finger. The surface felt warm and steady, like sun-warmed stone. She walked to the center, where the giant's hand curved like a gentle valley. There, she laid the ribbon down. It gleamed softly in the moonlight, glowing brighter as dream dust drifted over it. She placed her hand above it, whispering, "Sleepy giant, though you may never wake to see it, this ribbon is my promise. Each night, as you dream for us, I will remember you. I will teach my people not just to feel your peace, but to honor it. We will cherish the calm you give, and we will protect the land that you keep safe." As if in answer, the giant exhaled, and the breeze that followed brushed her cheeks like a gentle hand. The ribbon shimmered faintly, lifting into the air for just a moment before settling back down, as though the giant's dream had accepted it. Elara smiled, her eyes warm. She stepped back from his hand, letting the moss cradle her feet again. She looked once more at his immense, peaceful face, lit silver by the moon. "Rest well, guardian of dreams," she whispered. "Your gift is greater than you know." With her promise laid down, she turned slowly toward the path home. The moss glowed softly beneath her steps, the dream flowers sighing as she passed. The dream sprites stirred but did not wake, their tiny breaths keeping time with the giants. As she walked back across the field, she felt lighter, as though part of the giant's calm now rested in her own heart. His breathing rumbled gently behind her, following her like a lullaby all the way to the edge of the meadow. The moon lit her path back toward the forest, and she whispered to herself, "I came to understand him, and I do. He is not only sleeping, he is giving. And now I, too, will give." Princess Elara walked slowly back across the silver fields, the giant's calm breathing still rolling gently through the night air. It followed her like a lullaby, steady and low, reminding her with every step that she had not just visited a wonder, she had been entrusted with it. The ribbon she had left behind on his hand glowed faintly in her memory, a promise that would remain even when she returned to her tower. The forest welcomed her as she entered again. The tall trees swayed softly, their branches whispering together like old friends sharing secrets. The owl was waiting for her, perched high above. His round eyes gleamed as he spoke in a voice smooth as velvet. "Did you find what you sought, little princess?" Elara nodded, her voice a hush. "I did. I found not only the giant, but the gift he gives us all." The owl dipped his head, satisfied. "Then carry his peace with you always. It is lighter than air but stronger than stone." With that, he spread his wings and glided away into the shadows, his feathers brushing the quiet like a sigh. The fireflies returned, swirling around Elara in golden spirals, lighting her way. They seemed to hum happily, as if celebrating her return journey. She smiled and whispered, "Thank you, little lights. You have been my stars tonight." They blinked brighter in reply, then guided her to the edge of the meadow. When at last the castle towers rose ahead of her, their silhouettes tall against the fading moon, Elara's steps slowed. The world was utterly still, wrapped in the quiet the giant's dreams had spun. The drawbridge lay silent, the guards asleep at their posts, their heads bowed, their breaths steady. Even the torches glowed more gently, flames swaying like they, too, were dozing. She crossed the courtyard, her slippers brushing over stones smoothed by years of footsteps. Inside the castle walls, the hush deepened, as though every chamber had drawn in the calm from the hills. She moved quietly up the spiraling staircase, her cloak trailing, her lantern guiding her like the moon had guided her path. At last, she reached her tower. The window still stood open, the curtains swaying lightly in the night breeze. Elara stepped inside, setting her lantern on the sill. The moonlight and lamplight mingled together, soft and soothing. She removed her cloak and folded it neatly on the chair, then slipped beneath the covers of her bed, the sheets cool and welcoming. She curled onto her side, resting her head on her pillow. From her window, she could still hear the faintest hum of the giant's snores in the distance. They rolled through the night, softer now but steady, like the earth itself was humming her to sleep. She placed a hand over her heart and whispered, "Good night, guardian of dreams. Rest well. I will remember you." Her eyelids grew heavy, her breath slowing to match the rhythm of his. She imagined her ribbon glowing gently on his vast hand, a small token but one filled with love. She imagined the dream flowers opening with his breath, the dream sprites curled safe in his arm, the moss glowing faintly beneath the stars. All of it settled in her mind like a quilt stitched of peace. As her thoughts drifted, she felt her body grow lighter, as though she were part of the same dream he wove for the land. The calm he gave the kingdom now filled her too, carrying her deeper into sleep. And the night itself whispered to her, as it whispers to every dreamer who listens now, "You are safe. You are warm. You are loved. The world hums gently around you. The stars keep watch. The night carries you softly into dreams." Elara sighed once, softly, then stilled, wrapped in the hush of her tower. Outside, the sleepy giant continued his gentle breathing, keeping the land cradled in his slumber. And so the princess, the kingdom, and every child listening rested beneath the same blanket of peace, carried by the dreams of a giant who never stopped giving. And so the princess, the kingdom, and every child listening rested beneath the same blanket of peace, carried by the dreams of a giant who never stopped giving.